I used to think night shifts were just boring, empty rooms, stale coffee, and the hum of neon lights. But that was before I started working at Marlin's Diner, out on Highway 50. The first thing they handed me wasn't an apron or a time card. It was a list of rules. And last night, I broke one of them. Now the reflection in the window won't stop smiling back. My name's Evan Moore, 29 years old, former line cook from Reno. I used to think I could handle the pressure. Long shifts, burns, shouting chefs. But when the restaurant shut down after the fire, I lost everything. My paycheck, my apartment, and my sense of purpose. The job postings got fewer as winter rolled in, and desperation makes you say yes to things you shouldn't. That's how I ended up driving down Highway 50, the loneliest road in Nevada, to take the night shift at a forgotten place called Marlin's Diner. It wasn't on GPS, just a note scribbled in an email. Take exit 17. Keep driving until the desert turns red. By the time I saw the diner's flickering neon sign, Marlin's open 24 hours. I'd been driving through sand and silence for nearly an hour. The place looked like it hadn't seen a full house in decades. Rusted chrome, cracked glass windows, a single gas pump out front that probably hadn't worked since the 80s. Inside, the smell hit me first, burnt coffee and old grease, like the air itself was tired of trying. Behind the counter stood a woman, maybe in her late 60s. Her name tag read Delilah. Her hand shook as she poured coffee into a chipped mug, the dark liquid sloshing onto the counter. Her eyes were sunken, but alert, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "You the new night guy?" she asked, voice rough from cigarettes and time. "Yeah, Evan Moore. They said to check in with you before my shift starts." Delilah nodded slowly, then reached beneath the counter and pulled out a small, stained envelope. The paper was creased from being folded and unfolded too many times. She slid it toward me without meeting my eyes. "Read it before midnight," she said. "And for God's sake, follow the rules. You'll make it till dawn if you do." I try to laugh it off. "You're serious?" Her gaze cut through me. "You'll see." Before I could ask more, a dull thump came from somewhere in the back, like a box falling over. Delilah flinched, her hand tightening around the coffee pot. "Ignore that," she muttered. "It's just the pipes." The sound came again, softer this time, followed by what might have been a knock. Delilah's eyes darted toward the back hallway. A door marked storage. Employees only. "Shift's yours now," she said quietly, shrugging on her coat. "Don't go looking where you don't belong." As she left, the neon lights outside flickered, casting long, trembling shadows across the diner's walls. I noticed the faded bulletin board near the entrance, pinned with old newspaper clippings and photos of employees smiling in their uniforms. Each one had the same black marker note scrawled across the bottom. "Missing. Last seen. Marlin's Diner." That was when I realized I wasn't smiling anymore either. I didn't open the envelope until after Delilah's car disappeared down the highway, its taillights swallowed by the desert fog. The diner was silent again, just the low hum of the refrigerator, the occasional buzz of a dying neon sign, and the faint whistle of wind slipping through the cracks in the doorframe. I sat at the counter, tore open the stained envelope, and unfolded a piece of paper so thin it felt like it might disintegrate in my hands. Grease stains marked the corners, and the top was written in jagged, uneven letters. "Night shift protocol for survival." Below there were 9 rules, written in 2 different handwritings, one in faded black ink, another added later in shaky blue pen. I read them slowly, half amused, half unnerved. 1. After midnight, lock the back door, even if you hear someone asking to come in. 2. If the jukebox plays on its own, don't turn it off until the song ends. 3. Never serve coffee to the man without a face. He doesn't pay. 4. If a customer orders the special, tell them you're out. We don't have one. 5. If the clock above the grill stops ticking, leave the kitchen immediately. 6. When the headlights appear on the empty road, turn off all lights and stay low. 7. At 3:03 a.m., someone will call the diner's landline. Don't answer. 8. If Delilah knocks on the door, don't open. She hasn't worked here since 1999. 9. When dawn comes, leave before the jukebox starts again. I couldn't help but laugh under my breath. For survival? Really? It had to be some kind of initiation joke. A hazing tradition, maybe. I'd worked enough kitchens to know how people like to mess with new hires. Still, something about the way the ink smudged on certain words made me uneasy, as if the person writing had done it in a hurry, or with shaking hands. I pinned a list to the corkboard behind the register, right next to the Employee of the Month photo from 1999. The smiling face of a young Delilah stared back at me. The edges of the photo curled and yellowed. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, listening to the old radio hum through static. A talk show from somewhere in Utah came and went, then a burst of static cut through again. For a second, I thought I heard a voice buried in the interference. Low, whispering. Then silence. I shook it off. Probably feedback. The wiring here was ancient. The clock above the grill ticked loudly. Tick, 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 like it was reminding me it was still working. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying sand against the diner's glass windows with a soft hiss. I checked the back door. Locked. By 11:45 p.m., the desert outside was a black ocean. No cars. No stars. Just the diner's red neon glow reflected faintly in the glass. I busied myself with cleaning, wiping tables, scrubbing the counter, refilling the sugar jars. Anything to distract from how quiet it was. At 12:03 a.m., the power flickered once, then steadied. The hum of the refrigerator wavered for a second before resuming. The paper with the rules fluttered slightly on the wall, as if someone had brushed past it. I turned, half expecting to see the door moving. Nothing, just the emptiness pressing in from all sides. I laughed again, but it came out strained this time. Get together, Evan. I poured another cup of coffee, though the smell had turned bitter, like something burnt. And that's when I heard it, a faint, distant melody drifting through the air. Soft, crackling, old-fashioned. The jukebox, sitting quietly in the corner, had turned itself on. The record spun slowly, the machine's colored lights flickering to life. The song was something I hadn't heard in years. Blue Moon. I started toward it, hand reaching for the off switch, then stopped. Rule number 2. If the jukebox plays on its own, don't turn it off until the song ends. The melody filled the diner, warm and haunting, echoing against the empty booths. For the first time since I arrived, I realized how big this place felt, and how small I was inside it. When the song ended, the jukebox clicked off on its own, and for a long, terrible moment afterward, the diner was completely silent. The night started like any other dead-end shift, too quiet for comfort. A couple of truckers came through before midnight, the kind of guys who lived on caffeine and bad jokes. I poured their coffee, listened to them talk about a sandstorm up north, and nodded at all the right times. They tipped in change and left without saying goodbye. After that, the diner was mine again. The clock over the grill read 12:10 a.m. I wiped down the counter for the third time, mostly to have something to do. The radio was low, muttering about a cold front moving in from Utah. Outside, the desert looked like a painting, unmoving, infinite. Then, at 12:17 a.m., the jukebox came alive. No one touched it. The song started on its own, a crackling old vinyl tone that filled the air with static and sweetness. Blue Moon. The same melody I'd heard during my first night when Delilah was still here. The same one she told me never to turn off. The jukebox lights flickered like dying embers, the colors bouncing off the chrome and tile. My instinct was to switch it off, to stop the uneasy feeling crawling on my spine, but I froze. Rule number 2. If the jukebox plays on its own, don't turn it off until the song ends. So I waited. I leaned against the counter, pretending to act casual while my eyes scanned the empty booths, the glowing door, the black windows. There was nothing there. Nothing except the song echoing through the hollow diner, like it was playing for someone who wasn't me. Then I noticed the coffee machine. The surface of the metal was polished enough to show a faint reflection, just the glow of the lights and my own tired face. Except something was wrong. The reflection wasn't matching me. I was staring blankly, my lips pressed together. But the reflection, it smiled, just slightly. My heart skipped. I blinked and stepped closer, squinting at the surface. It was subtle, too subtle, but the reflection's expression had changed again. The corners of its mouth curled a little higher, like it was proud of something I hadn't realized yet. I backed away, my breath shallow. "You're just tired, Evan," I muttered. "It's the lights. Just a trick of the lights." But the reflection didn't fade. For half a second before I turned away, I could have sworn it winked. The rest of the night crawled. Every creak in the floorboards made me jump. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps behind the diner. I found myself whispering the rules out loud, just to fill the silence. At 2:57 a.m., I noticed the clock above the grill had slowed, the second hand twitching instead of moving smoothly. I held my breath. Rule number 5. If the clock above the grill stops ticking, leave the kitchen immediately. It hadn't stopped. Not yet. But it was slowing down, like it was being pulled underwater. I took one step backward toward the dining area. My eyes flicked up again. The second hand jerked once more, then froze between two ticks. I didn't hesitate. I bolted from the kitchen, nearly knocking over a stool as I crossed into the dining area. The moment I did, the clock ticked again, loud and clear. Then silence. I looked back. The clock was running normally. The second hand moving steady. Everything perfectly fine. Except now, the back door, the one I had locked, was open. A soft breeze slid through the diner, stirring the napkins on the tables. The desert outside was pitch black, but the air felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. I stepped toward the door, every instinct screaming that I shouldn't. The rule was clear. After midnight, lock the back door, even if you hear someone asking to come in. But no one had knocked. No one had spoken. It was just open. Then the landline phone on the counter rang. The sound was sharp and shrill, slicing through the silence. 3 rings. 4. I froze, staring at it. Rule number 7. At 3:03 a.m., someone will call the diner's landline. Don't answer. The clock on the wall read 3:03 a.m. exactly. The phone rang again. 5th ring. I could have sworn I saw the receiver tremble, as if something inside was breathing. Then it stopped ringing. For a second, I thought it was over. Then a faint click, and from the receiver came a voice. Calm, soft, almost gentle. Evan. I didn't move. Don't let them see you looking. It was a woman's voice. I dropped the receiver like it burned me. It hit the floor and swung on its cord, except there was no cord. The phone wasn't plugged into the wall at all. A long, low hum began to fill the diner, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. The lights dimming, the jukebox clicking as if readying to play again. I stood frozen in the middle of the empty diner, my pulse hammering in my ears. Outside, across the dark desert highway, headlights appeared. 2 beams, bright and white, cutting through the fog. But there was no engine sound. The light just kept coming, closer and closer, until I realized the beams weren't headlights. They were eyes. By 3:30 a.m., the diner was drowning in silence. The jukebox had stopped, the lights were dim, and the clock above the grill ticked like a slow heartbeat. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I kept sipping it anyway. Anything to stay awake. The rules were pinned on the wall behind me, fluttering every now and then with the soft draft from the vents. I caught myself glancing at them too often, as if the paper itself could keep me safe. That's when I heard it. The crunch of gravel outside, slow and deliberate. Then the low hiss of brakes releasing. Through the fog glass, the outline of a truck loomed. An old semi with no trailer, headlights dimmed but still burning faintly yellow. The engine wasn't running. I hadn't heard it approach. It was just there. A tall figure stepped out from the driver's side. Even through the mist, I could tell something was off about the way he moved. Too smooth, like his limbs didn't quite have joints. The door chime jingled as he entered, that soft metallic sound echoing far too loud in the empty diner. He wore a dark overcoat soaked with something darker than water, leaving a trail of damp footprints across the tile. He walked with his head slightly tilted, as though he were listening for something I couldn't hear. When he reached the counter, I froze. His face, or what should have been his face, was nothing but skin, smooth and pale like wax stretched too thin. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just a faint impression of where features should be. He sat down at the first stool, folding his hands neatly on the counter. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of the clock ticking and the faint hum of the fridge. Then he spoke, except he didn't open a mouth. He didn't have one. The sound came through the air itself, thin and dry, like words whispered through an old radio. Coffee. My breath caught. Rule number 3. Never serve coffee to the man without a face. He doesn't pay. I remembered the exact wording. I stared at him, praying he'd just vanish if I stayed still long enough. "Coffee," he said again, quieter this time. Something in the tone made my chest tighten. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Against every ounce of reason, I turned, grabbed the pot, and poured. My hand shook so badly that the cup overflowed, the liquid splattering across the counter. When I looked back, the faceless man had tilted his head slightly, as if studying me. I pushed the cup toward him. He didn't move, didn't reach for it, just sat there, still as a photograph. The coffee in the cup began to ripple, though the air was still. Then, slowly, the dark brown liquid started turning black, thicker with each second until it looked like oil. A faint trail of smoke rose from the surface. Not steam, but something colder. I stumbled backward, knocking over the sugar jar. The glass shattered across the floor, but the sound didn't echo. It was swallowed by something heavier in the air, like the diner was holding its breath. Then the lights went out. Every single bulb popped in unison. The hum of the refrigerator died. Even the ticking clock fell silent. And in that pitch black, the radio clicked on. Static hissed. Then a voice emerged, hoarse, trembling, but unmistakable. "You shouldn't have served him, Evan." Delilah. Her voice was laced with fear, as though she were speaking from somewhere far away, buried under snow or sand. I turned toward the sound, but the static swelled until it felt like a storm in my skull. The faceless man still sat at the counter, or maybe he wasn't sitting anymore. I couldn't tell. His silhouette seemed taller, wider, stretching unnaturally toward the ceiling. I ran. The front door was only 20 feet away, but the air felt thick, like wading through water. My hand hit the door handle, locked. I pulled, shoved, slammed my shoulder into it. Nothing. The glass on the door reflected the diner behind me, but the reflection was wrong. In it, every surface gleamed with a wet sheen, and the man's reflection wasn't sitting at the counter anymore. He was standing behind me. I turned. Nothing there. But in the reflection, his faceless head tilted slightly, as if disappointed. Then, slowly, all the other reflections, the coffee pot, the chrome fixtures, the jukebox glass began to shift. Every mirrored surface in the diner now faced him, even the ones that shouldn't have been able to. I screamed, slamming my fist against the glass until it cracked. The reflections trembled, all turning back toward me, and for a split second, in every one of them, I saw my own face, smiling. Then the power returned. The lights flickered back on. The radio went dead. The diner was empty. The man was gone. Only the coffee cup remained on the counter, still full, the black liquid smoking cold. When I looked down at my reflection in it, it smiled again. This time I didn't. The sun rose without color, just pale lights spilling through dusty windows, turning the chrome counters into dull mirrors. I'd spent the rest of the night sitting on the floor, back against the fridge, staring at the black coffee cup that refused to cool down. When the first truck passed on the highway, I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was the first real sound I'd heard in hours. Something alive, something normal. By morning, the diner looked ordinary again. No signs of the faceless man, no broken lights, no trace of the radio's voice. It was like nothing had happened at all, except it had. I could still smell burnt ozone in the air, like the aftermath of lightning. I had to know what this place really was. Behind the counter, under a pile of old menus and receipt books, I found a binder labeled employee records. Most of the pages were water-stained or stuck together, but one page near the back caught my attention. It was a photo, Delilah, much younger, smiling, standing beside 8 other employees in crisp white uniforms. They all looked alive, carefree. The caption under the photo read, "Marlin's Diner Staff, 1999, 9 names." I flipped through the pages and found a photocopy of a newspaper article stapled to the back. The headline was half torn but still legible. "Tragedy on Highway 50. Local diner destroyed in fire. 9 missing." The date was March 3rd, 1999. The article described an overnight electrical fire that reduced Marlin's Diner to ashes. Witnesses said they saw the building collapse around 3 a.m. Rescue teams never recovered any bodies. I felt my throat tighten as the details clicked into place. The building I was standing in, this diner, had been rebuilt. Same location, same name, same layout. And the people in that picture, never left. I grabbed a flashlight and headed into the storage room. It was colder than the rest of the diner, filled with boxes of expired supplies and broken equipment. A layer of dust coated everything, like no one had been down there in decades. That's when I saw it. An old radio, half buried under a tarp. The casing was dented, one knob missing, but the engraved plate on the side was still readable. Delilah. I stared at it for a long moment before turning it on. At first, just static, a low hiss that filled the room. Then, after a few seconds, a voice began to cut through, faint but distinct. It was her. If you're hearing this, it means you took my shift. My heart stopped. They're not customers, Evan. They're echoes. The ones who stayed too long. The ones who served the wrong orders, answered the wrong calls, broke the wrong rules. The static grew louder, swallowing half her words, but I could still make out fragments. They don't remember what they were. The diner feeds them, gives them shape again, but they're hungry for faces, for names. I knelt beside the radio, pressing the speaker closer to my ear. Delilah, I whispered. How do I stop it? A long pause. Then, faintly, you don't. You just last as long as you can. The recording ended with a faint hum, then the click of a jukebox button. And from the front of the diner, as if on cue, I heard it start again. Blue Moon. The melody drifted down the hallway, muffled through the walls, soft and trembling. I turned off the flashlight and crept toward the sound. The jukebox was glowing, casting red and blue light across the empty booths. No one stood near it, but on the counter, the coffee cup I'd left hours ago was still there, still full, still steaming cold. I picked it up, and that's when I saw it, scratched faintly into the bottom of the cup under the glaze. March 3rd, 1999. The same date from the newspaper. The same night they all disappeared. The jukebox clicked, replaying the song from the beginning. This time, between verses, I could swear I heard something beneath the melody, a second voice whispering along, off-key, and it was whispering my name. The clock hit 3:03 a.m. The air in the diner shifted, heavier, colder, thicker. The jukebox stopped mid-song, its lights freezing in mid-flicker. For a second, the silence was absolute, like the whole world had exhaled and forgotten how to breathe again. Then the phone rang. I stared at it, frozen. I already knew what time it was. Rule number 7. At 3:03 a.m., someone will call the diner's landline. Don't answer. But the sound pierced through me, shrill, electric, desperate. Ring, ring. Each tone felt closer, louder, until it didn't sound like a ring anymore, but like someone screaming through the wire. On the third ring, I grabbed my jacket and bolted for the door. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't care about the rules. I just needed to get out. The desert outside swallowed me whole. The wind was gone, the air still, the night stretching in every direction. The diner's neon sign sputtered behind me, painting the sand in a dying red glow. Then, in the distance, headlights appeared. A pair of them, faint and pale, cutting through the fog of dust that hung low over the road. My chest tightened. The rules came rushing back. When the headlights appear on the empty road, turn off all lights and stay low. But I was already outside. I was standing in the open, exposed. The lights grew brighter, and as they did, they changed. They weren't headlights. They were eyes, huge, round, and human, but glowing like white fire. Something walked in the light's wake. A figure. It moved slow, deliberate, dragging its feet across the cracked asphalt. The closer it came, the clearer it became. The old uniform, the diner apron, the silver name tag. Delilah. But her face was wrong. It was half-burned, the skin blackened and cracked, mouth twisted in a grimace that might have been a smile. The scent of smoke hit me, sharp and bitter, like burnt coffee and flesh. She stopped a few feet away. Her eyes, what was left of them, locked onto mine. You didn't leave before the music stopped. Her voice wasn't her own. It was layered, warped, as if every lost voice from that place was speaking through her. I stumbled backward, tripping over the curb. From behind me, through the diner windows, the light flickered violently. And then I saw them. Every mirror in the diner, the chrome fixtures, the glass coffee pots, the refrigerator door, they all reflected me, but not in sync. Each reflection moved a second late, like a bad film reel. A lagging version of me, blinking after I blinked, breathing after I breathed. Then one of them smiled. Just one. A perfect, slow, deliberate grin. And before I could move, that reflection stepped out of the glass. It peeled itself into the room like liquid shadow, its movements too fluid, too wrong. Its eyes were hollow and black, its skin pale as wax. But its face, my face, stretched into a smile I couldn't make. It reached for me. Every light in the diner exploded at once. The jukebox screamed to life with static. And then, nothing. No sound, no movement, no light. Just the faint echo of Blue Moon playing somewhere in the dark. And the whisper of my own voice asking from the void. Coffee. The smell of coffee brought me back. I opened my eyes to fluorescent light, the hum of an air conditioner, and the faint sound of someone typing on a keyboard. I wasn't in the diner. I was in an office, clean, white, too bright to be real. A man in a pressed shirt stood across from me, smiling. His badge read Regional Manager, Marlin Holdings. Good to have you back, Evan, he said, sliding a folder across the desk. We've finally reopened. You'll be the new night manager. His voice was too cheerful, too calm, like I didn't notice the tremor in my hands or the blood crusted beneath my fingernails. I stared at the folder. The logo on the top corner was the same. Marlin's Diner, bright red script. As if the fire, the faceless man, Delilah, all of it, had never existed. I swallowed hard. Reopen? I asked. When? He smiled wider. Tonight. The words buzzed in my ears. I want to tell him what happened. About the reflections, the rules, the voice, but the words wouldn't come. My throat felt locked. He stood, shaking my hand. The keys already in the car. You know the way. When he left, I sat in silence. The office clock ticked, tick, tick, tick. I opened the desk drawer to grab a pen. Something slipped out and fluttered onto the floor. A folded, grease-stained piece of paper. I unfolded it slowly. 9 rules. My breath caught when I saw the 10th line, freshly written in handwriting I recognized as my own. If you see someone smiling in your reflection, don't look away. It's already you. Somewhere in the distance, a jukebox started playing Blue Moon.